So, what is low friction gardening? Low friction gardening is referring to removing some of the effort so that you can grow in your garden and it's not so hard. With low friction gardening, you use logic and your layout and systems to grow without having to fight things. So, everything works with you versus being so much effort. So, that's what we're going to talk about today. I want to walk you through 6 practical tips to help make your gardening easier and make it more enjoyable because you don't have to work quite so hard. The first place that we can reduce friction or have things work with us is thinking about the sunlight. Think about how the sun hits the area where you're going to have plants. Whether you're growing in containers or you just have a garden or a raised bed or a greenhouse, all of those things, all of those different places that you're growing are going to have the light hit them in some facet. So if you can think about how it's going to hit and where it's going to hit on those plants, it's going to offer more success with less work. Think about even if you ever put a plant in a window that doesn't get a lot of light or the right kind of light. I've seen that. I've done that. I have to turn the plant. I have to move it around. You see one side growing stronger and hardier naturally because the sun hits it that way, right? So let's think about light first. This is our first tip, is thinking about what the light is and where the light is in the space that you're growing. The sun rises in the east, of course, and it sets in the west. So as the sun is moving across the sky, you're going to have the most sunlight in the south. When plants get the right light naturally, then you don't have to combat whether they're getting leggy or one side's growing better or troubleshoot if it's a weak growth, stretching, poor production, all that kind of thing. You've already eliminated one of the elements that you have to worry about and try and troubleshoot. So that's the first tip I have for non-friction gardening. Second tip I want to talk about for low friction gardening is your watering. Watering is a basic component, of course, of growing our plants. They all need water. But to think about how you're watering can really save you a lot of time and make things a lot easier. How are you getting water to your plants? That seems simple, but I know for myself, when I started out with one jug of water and I'm just going to go around and water my plants, not a big deal. But when I started getting more plants and more plants and more plants, the next thing I knew, it was fill a jug, water half of them, go back and get more, remember where I stopped, do more watering. It was a process and it took a long time. And I found myself even putting off watering sometimes, which is terrible for my plants, of course, but I did because I was constantly back and forth to the sink and the faucet and carrying the jugs. Then I moved into, at one point, I tried doing garden hoses. But what does that take for you? Are you constantly pulling out a garden hose if you have a garden and you're dragging it across the yard and then you have to wrap it back up or it's time to mow. So we got to move the garden hose again. That can be a lot. So it just kind of depends on how much work is it to water. It's going to equal a lot of times that friction right there. If I don't want to water, I'm not going to get to it as often. So a really simple and honestly inexpensive upgrade is maybe thinking about automatic watering. Drip tape and water emitters, timers, sprinkler systems. Depending on your setup, any or all of those items can really help make it a lot easier to get water to your plants the way they need it and as often as they need it. It can make life so much easier and can really help with more consistency as well with your watering. So your plants are going to really appreciate that more and they're going to be a lot healthier and hardier and produce more fruit or just lush, more plants in general. Also think about with your watering on those busy days, the last thing you want to do is sit down and get everything out to water everything. If it's automated or on timers, no matter how busy you are that day, or even if you're not home that day, your plants get the water that they need. A third tip for non-friction gardening is thinking about containers. Containers, raised beds, vertical growers, all of these things can make life so much easier. If you're constantly having to bend down, stoop to the ground, kneel down, pulling weeds, all of those things are going to make things less enjoyable and you're not going to want to do it as much and plants will suffer for that. So your best thing that you can do, if you can do it, container growing, whether it's pots, raised beds, vertical growing, any of those things that you can do are going to really help make things easier to grow. And if it's easier to grow, the more likely you are to do it. The more likely you are to tend your actual crop versus fighting things like weeds. If you're growing in a container, you can eliminate a lot of weeds. You can also set up your containers with the right soils, and it can pretty much feed the plants without you having to add much to it or do much to it. And we have another video on that you can watch sometime on the soil to put in containers. And it can really just kind of take care of itself almost, which is fantastic. So that helps a lot. Obviously, not having to bend over all the time, also just to tend to everything. Things get missed. I've actually had plants where underneath a leaf that I didn't pick up, it was rotting underneath it. And I didn't know, or bugs had gotten to it because I didn't realize it because I didn't bend all the way down and pull the leaves up. But with raised beds or containers, it's a lot easier to get to all those small spaces to really see what's going on with your plant, to see if the leaves are looking good, if anything's having a problem, if there are pests. You can see everything a lot better if it's a little bit higher up and it's not such a chore to lean all the way down. Another thing to think about are vertical planters. I love vertical planters. They save a ton of space. And again, you can add whatever amendments you want to help whatever plant you're growing in those vertical gardens really thrive. They go straight up in the air if you haven't seen them. You can grow strawberries really well. You can grow everything, but they're just amazing for being nice and tall, which I love because I'm a pretty tall person. So having those plants being up higher, and a lot of them, you can just turn them as well. So you don't have to even walk around the plant and try and get to the back side of it. You can simply turn those vertical planters and it like brings the plant to you, which is pretty awesome. So something to think about there. Vertical planters can really be super helpful and make things a lot easier. And again, a lot less effort, which is what we're going after. So my fourth tip is don't be afraid of shade. And that sounds weird. Everyone always thinks, sun-loving plants, especially all plants love the sun. And yes, most plants love the sun, but there's a caveat to that. Many plants actually can burn with the sun or overheat with the sun. So my suggestion for that is shade cloth. Shade cloth can be a really simple, small investment on the overall grand scheme of things. Shade cloth can save your plants. And I speak from the experience of tomatoes, which are sun-loving plants. And even though that's one thing I was really surprised by, I thought that they would love having as much sun as possible. I never thought I would want to shade tomatoes, but they would burn. And they actually would get, the yellow spots on the side, that's them burning. And so we realized quickly that a shade cloth is just filtering your light. It's not eliminating it. Plants still grow great. They actually love it. Many, many plants will thrive with some shade cloth. Strawberries, lettuce, spinach, those are plants that can grow into a lot longer into seasons because a lot of times there's a little bit of shade, and lowering that temperature just slightly, filtering that sun just a little bit, it's going to really help them to thrive. And so it's well worth it. So instead of having to fight pulling things off early, which is something we used to do so it wouldn't burn, just a shade cloth can really help make things a lot easier and you won't be fighting too much sun. So tip number 5, be picky about what you plant. We all have ideas of what we want to grow. And a lot of times it's a variety of things or something that maybe we love to eat, which is fantastic. I'm not saying don't do that. But if you want to go with ease and your goal is, I want to have these plants thrive, but I don't want to or don't maybe have the time to work on them all the time. That's fair. We're busy people. So if you want to think about how is this going to be easier, think about plants that grow easier in your area and or in your light conditions or in your environment, your climate, those kinds of things. It's not to say you can't grow harder crops, but I am going to say that if you're deciding to grow something really tropical in a really, really cold environment, that's going to be a lot more effort. That's going to take a lot more worrying about the heat and the sunshine and all the things that maybe you don't have naturally. So it's an uphill battle. So that's going to be a lot more work. If you're growing something that fits your environment, your lighting, your temperatures a little more naturally, and that doesn't mean you may not have to add something here or there. But if you're not trying to fight it so much, you're going to have a lot more crop. It's going to be in a lot better condition. It's going to be hardier. All those things are going to go into effect because you're not trying to fight every element out there. When plants are succeeding naturally, your effort's going to go way down and your harvest is actually going to increase tremendously, which is well worth it. So my final tip for you on non-friction growing is think about your turnover time and then what your goals are. So if you're looking to get a lot of produce, especially maybe if you're looking to grow and sell produce or to have a participate in a farmer's market, or you have a lot of people that you're trying to get food to, or you're storing and canning, all that kind of stuff. Think about your turnover time and how long it takes things to grow. It's really worth considering. Some crops, some plants take a really long time to get to fruition. Growing pineapple, it's going to take you a long time to get very many pineapples. But growing lettuce, on the other hand, you're going to be able to really have a lot of crop. So lettuce is the perfect example. I always use it because it grows so fast. It's ready in 30 to 40 days from seed start. So you can get a lot of crop and a lot of harvest. You can keep growing lettuce, keep replanting it. It doesn't take up a lot of space, depending on the type of lettuce, whether it's leaf or even the Bibb lettuce. But even by comparison to some of your other plants, it's pretty small, and you can grow in containers. You can fit a lot of heads of lettuce in a space. So that's a really good crop to consider if you're wanting more of a crop. Again, if you don't care or you want to grow a lot of variety, that's fine. But just think about if you're going I want really low effort, and I want to see production, and I want to see results. I only have a small window that I actually can grow, maybe an area you're living in. Something like lettuce is a great crop to grow because it's going to be done in 30 to 40 days, and you can just plant it again and get a whole another crop. Greens, most types of greens actually are pretty quick. Herbs are incredibly fast. Radishes are another fast crop. So just think about what you're looking for and how much of it you want to have. What are your goals? Are you wanting to can it? Did you get started and you've only got a short time frame? All of those things are things you want to think about to decide what kind of crops to grow. And so you'll know how long it's going to take and what you can expect. If you don't have a lot of time to tend to those things, also low maintenance crops, things like I mentioned lettuce, of course, but lettuce and greens and radishes, those are all also crops that don't require a lot of maintenance. You don't need to prune them. You don't need to be messing with them all the time. They're just pretty simple crops. So that's something to consider too. So low friction gardening isn't about cutting corners, and it's not about not having the crop that you want or planting what you want. It's just about using what you've got to make it easier. It's less work, which I think we could all appreciate. When you use the sun correctly, when you think about how you're watering, when you reduce your physical strain that you're putting into gardening, when you are controlling your heat, like with shade cloth, and considering that in advance, choosing the right type of plants for your environment, and focusing on your turnaround times. How much time is it going to take for those plants to grow? Then you're going to have a much better crop and a much better experience with growing. You're more likely to enjoy what you're doing versus fighting everything. Designing grow spaces that help people make things easier is what we do at Greenhouse Kits One. So if this has helped you, which I hope it has, and you like this information or would like more information, please like, subscribe, check out our channel, and I hope to see you. Thanks.